Good morning, folks, and welcome to RCL Sports Live. I'm Emily Knell.
And I'm Mike McPeek.
And we're your hosts for the day.
On this episode, we will be discussing the rising issue of paying college athletes in the NCAA.
College athletes can be paid.
It's time to now pay players.
It's absurd to pretend these are amateur sports.
I don't know, Mike, if those kids ripping down street lamps at Penn State last week could be considered adults.
Exactly. There are a lot of critics to this proposed idea, but also a lot of people for it.
Well, before we get into these issues, however, we are sending you over to our sports historian correspondent, Pavsek, to give you some background on the NCAA.
I'll first start with a brief history of the NCAA, then move into how this organization plays a role in the debate of paying college athletes. The NCAA was formed in 1906 to protect young people from the dangerous and exploitive athletic practices of the time. During this time, sports was very dangerous and many people were dying due to the harsh conditions. In an effort to save the sport, Teddy Roosevelt got together with a group of head coaches and school leaders to discuss drastic rule changes for the sport. The Intercollegiate Conference became the persecutor for the NCAA.
What about Title IX?
Yes, Mike, I heard that Title IX plays a large role on the paying college athlete debate.
You guys hit it on the nose. Title IX on the Education Amendments Act of 1972 is very important to the college athlete debate. This title states that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial funding.
But hold on, how does this relate to paying college athletes?
Well, this title gives all sexes equal access, participation, and benefits in sports, so people who are pro-paying college athletes says this title will protect against unequal pay for the different sexes.
But aren't women athletes paid less in every single professional sport today?
And aren't women athletes given less benefits in collegiate sports as well?
Both are completely accurate, which is a rising concern for people against paying college athletes. According to the Women's Sports Association, college and professional sports continue to provide unequal funding for women. Although the gap has narrowed, male athletes still receive 55% of NCAA college athletic scholarships dollars for Division I and II, leaving only 45% for women. Also, median head coaches' salaries at NCAA Division schools are $3,430,000 for men's teams and $1,172,400 for women's teams. This is a difference of $2,257,600. Women are clearly given less benefits, so how do we make pay fair for all athletes, even though men's sports usually bring in more revenue? This is a variable that needs to be considered when paying college athletes, especially due to Title IX.
You got that right, Hope. Thanks for giving us a detailed history of the NCAA.
Now we will be moving on to our next discussion point. Education is money. If we assume that men and women's programs will be paid the same regardless of the revenue they bring in for the school, and if we assume that colleges will continue to support the number of sports teams that they do, how much would it cost and who would pay it? To answer this question, we will phone in an expert, Julia Classen.
As a result of all of these special treatments and perks for athletes, other areas of universities have to be cut. If we resort to paying athletes, these cuts will just get worse. Tuition would increase, which seems somewhat unfair for students that have nothing to do with the athletics. According to Time, 81% of college students said they opposed raising the amount of their fees that went to the athletics program or wanted it reduced. So obviously this is a debate that would not just affect the football players, but the rest of the school as well. College is expensive enough as it is, and deciding factors on which school to go to for a lot of kids comes down to the price. Time also stated changes to how student athletes are paid could lead some schools stuck with nowhere else to turn to raise other students' fees. University and colleges could also scale back their athletic programs to cut costs. That would be the rational approach. But when it comes to college athletics, rationality doesn't often prevail. There are so many societal pressures. This is a really good point that sports crazy people do not always think rationally or consider the rest of the body of people that belong to the university.
Thanks, Julia.
Now we're going to throw it over to Devin McDuffie, a student life coordinator at a D1 university. Devin, what would you say the benefits of being a D1 athlete are?
So I'm going to throw up a list on the screen of some of the main benefits. So the Academic Center includes things like personal and career counseling, academic advisors to help with eligibility, course selection, etc. This second perk is due largely to Shabazz Napier, a UConn basketball player who spoke out saying,
sometimes, like I said, there's hungry nights where I'm not able to eat, and but I still got to play up to my capabilities. There are hungry nights that I go to bed and I'm starving.
That's insane. Hunger Games should take place annually in a dystopian future.
Not every march sponsored by Coca-Cola on CBS.
The meal plans allowed by the NCAA required 3 scheduled meals a day, and players often missed a meal due to practice times. The rules have since been changed to allow unlimited meals. So an example I've heard is, if a team wants to catch a movie after practice, the school may foot the bill for that. If a team is in Orlando for a tournament and wants to go to Disney World, the school may pay for that too. For example, University of Oregon's Hatfield-Dowling complex is devoted entirely to the football team.
So Devin, this seems to give athletes, especially at the D1 level, a huge advantage over the general student body. Is there anything you would consider a disadvantage?
One of the biggest disadvantages is the lack of free time these students have. D1 athletes self-support spending from 32 to 42 hours a week in activities related to their sport, despite the fact that the NCAA is supposed to limit this time to 20 hours. This extra time is devoted to voluntary weightlifting, final study, or travel to and from games. Say an athlete spends around 15 hours in class, 35 hours in sport-related activities, and 56 hours sleeping. That's 106 hours. There are only 168 hours in a week. In the remainder of that time, student athletes have to study, eat, do their laundry, socialize with people outside of the team, or join an extracurricular.
So how does that time commitment affect their academics?
Almost 2/3 of Division I student athletes believe their GPA would be higher if they had not participated in the sport. The NCAA conducted a study in 2008 surveying 8,500 student athletes between D1, D2, and D3 athletes. And here are the results. This obviously robs students of a lot of time they could use to meet with professors, do research, or prepare for class in the same way non-athletes do. That devalues their education, as do the frauds in the past involving enrolling athletes in phantom classes, or classes where there were significantly lighter workloads or no grades at all. This has happened at UNC, Syracuse, and according to Time magazine, 20 additional schools that are being investigated. So even when these phantom classes aren't available, athletes still feel pressure to schedule their classes around practice or choose easier majors to make sure they have enough time to devote to their sport.
Thanks, Devin. There are also many examples of conflicts with the NCAA about student athletes being exploited and not being able to make money off of their own name and likeness. For example, while Chris Webber and Carmelo Anthony were at Michigan and Syracuse respectively, their college jerseys were among the best-selling in the country, and felt they were being exploited, making the university a lot of money and seeing none of it themselves. Another example includes one of the biggest lawsuits the NCAA has faced on this issue in the O'Bannon versus the NCAA case. Ed O'Bannon, an ex-UCLA basketball star, sued the NCAA after he saw himself in a college basketball video game nearly 15 years after he graduated and was not at all compensated. A more recent example includes star running back Todd Gurley, who was suspended indefinitely by the NCAA and University of Georgia after he was found to have sold thousands of dollars worth of autographed memorabilia.
So based on all the interviews we've had, there's no perfect solution in the debate of whether or not to pay college athletes. Either way, there will be groups who are unsatisfied with the outcome, whether they're the ones footing the bill or the ones who feel they should be paid.
That's very true. There really are just so many different viewpoints and different challenges that make implementing any changes much more difficult, and I'm sure this will be an ongoing debate. Up next on RCL Sports Live, the top 10 plays of the week.